Welcome back. We are in Brain Energy. My brain energy is all flawed. We just talked about that. Brain Energy by Dr. Chris Palmer. And we are in chapter 16. I call this the Captain Obvious chapter, but it is.
I don't know, man. I got some interesting tidbits out of it.
Contributing cause, drugs, and alcohol. I joke, Captain Obvious, but it's...
You'd probably be surprised at the number of people that don't make the connection between mitochondria and alcohol. I know plenty of people that drink a bottle of wine every evening or 4 glasses of liquor every evening and would go, oh, I feel a little sluggish in the morning. I have a bit of a hangover, but they've never done the long-term effects on their metabolic health. Never. They've never made that connection.
Yeah, because I think we all know the physical complications, right, of excessive or, habitual. But in fairness, the effects on mitochondria, I had never considered. I think in reading up to where
I know what you're saying. You're going, Captain Obvious, alcohol and drugs is bad for you. And you shouldn't do it. And
well, if everything else in my life affects mitochondria, I would expect these two as well.
So he talks about the feedback loop here once again, and I thought that was interesting. That was one of the interesting parts for me. The feedback loop being, you've had a very stressful day, so you're going to go drink a couple glasses of wine, and it's going to help you unwind. Meanwhile, you're doing more damage to yourself, and you wake up tomorrow and you're depressed, or maybe not from a couple glasses, but you get the point. You start on this snowball effect, right? You don't feel good tomorrow, and then the process starts all over.
Well, I think, I don't remember where, but doesn't he talk about that it inhibits the ATP production, which is energy?
Yeah.
Which kind of makes sense, right? A bunch of mitochondria are chilling out, some alcohol flows into the membrane. They're like, let's chill out, and they quit doing their job, which is in some parts to create that energy, to create the ATP. Mm-hmm. Is that the right one?
So yeah, he talks about other people get into drugs and alcohol because they are already metabolically compromised, right? So you're already overweight, you already feel like crap, and he mentions, I think the word normal, that some people just already feel like crap and just want a little bit of normalcy to their life. Dude, I used to use that excuse all the time. My brain, I've mentioned to you, my brain doesn't shut off.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, my friends would laugh at me. They say I have a shut off switch, right? That, I can have, 4 or 5 glasses of beer and boom, then it's over. I could be sitting here talking to you, and then the next minute it's out like a light.
I've never seen that.
Right.
Right.
But they're like, I forget the term they use. Narcoleptic. And they're like, you're narcoleptic, right? You can sit here and be talking to me, and the next minute, yeah, you're snoring up a storm. But I think that's because my brain literally doesn't shut off. And one of the things that alcohol does for me is take a pause, relax. Now, I've learned through my older years to do it in different ways.
Right.
I'm learning the healthy aspect of it rather than what I did in my 30s. But yeah, some people do this. Some people have stressful jobs. Some people.
I was going to say, man, you mentioned in your 30s, that's a time you're building a career, you're raising a family. The stressors, they're different at our age and they're real.
Mm-hmm.
Very real. But back then it's a different level, I think. It's
high RPM
roof over my family's head.
It was high RPM at that level, They're just lower RPM and bigger engines now.
Yeah. They're diesel problems.
Yeah. So, so you could have is what he's alluding to, is you can have mental disorders and you're using drugs and alcohol as a way to help you normalize your life, but in all honesty, it's causing greater problems.
Yeah.
It's a short-term fix. we mentioned this a lot with pharmaceuticals in general, right? That a lot of these drugs are short-term fixes. They're not long-term fixes. And drugs and alcohol is the same.
Yeah, so then he moves specifically into alcohol and then marijuana, and I'll save you. He goes into the kind of the science behind alcohol, all the different enzymes and
Brain glucose,
da da da.
Yep.
But he then gets into some of the studies, I guess that you have it highlighted, I think.
Yeah. Dr. Nora Volkov, the director of National Institute on Drug Abuse, has been studying the connection between addiction and metabolism for years now. She said others have discovered some surprising findings in chronic alcoholics. When people drink alcohol, their brains use less glucose as an energy source and instead use acetate from alcohol. So they, instead of using glucose for their brains, they use acetate from the alcohol as energy.
Right.
Over time, alcoholics develop a problem with brain glucose and the metabolism. Basically, the acetate no longer works as a form of brain, or the glucose the glucose no longer works as a form of brain energy. And
as soon as they drink again,
they feel good again.
They get that acetate.
The energy starts flowing again, and they feel good. But if they try to stay sober, all hell breaks loose. Right.
Yeah. So they in that Volkow and others set out to see if they could help these struggling brain cells with something other than alcohol. And I find that interesting. They turn to the ketogenic diet.
Because what happens in the ketogenic diet? The brain uses stored fat for energy now. So now you're introducing a third source of potential energy, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, I mean, and you remember the keto flu, right? You remember the keto?
Oh, yeah.
Like, occasionally you probably still go into it, and occasionally when I do a long fast, I do. Basically, the keto flu is that portion of time when your body moves from glucose to fat energy, right? It's that where you start to burn ketones.
And it's confused. It's
your body just like, I don't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. So he wraps up alcohol with something I thought was interesting that so he talks about a study where they put some people on a regular diet and some people on a ketogenic diet, and then they reintroduced alcohol, and the people on keto got impaired faster. So he warns at the end, he says, this means that if people with alcohol use disorder were to try a ketogenic diet on their own, it could be dangerous. They could get much more intoxicated than usual.
Well, I look at that from 4 McDonald's cheeseburgers when you are hungover makes you feel better pretty quickly.
It soaks it up.
It soaks it up, right? But guess what? You couldn't imagine a steak doing that, right? I mean,
right.
Well, that makes sense. He moves into marijuana, and I gotta say, I've never been a big marijuana guy. I don't like it at all, right?
I've never had it, ever.
You see the halo over his head.
No, I just, it's really one of those things. I've just stumbled through life without ever.
Yeah, it's never really done anything for me. Back in college, smoke a joint, eat a pizza, fall asleep.
I'm into one day under wife supervision or something.
Right. But it made sense to me. He says any substance that reduces mitochondrial function in the correct cells could also reduce symptoms. So he touts people have touted marijuana as the cure-all drug, right? It helps people with cancer. It helps people with cancer and diet.
Mental illness, fibromyalgia,
a ton of different things, right? So what he's saying is the marijuana slows down the mitochondria in the cells, right? So that makes sense. Slower mitochondria, slower cells, slow things down a little bit, makes you feel a little bit better, right? But the problem is it slows down the good ones, not just the bad ones, right?
Right.
So long-term effects, again, it might be a short-term solution, but you're going to have some long-term effects.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But I don't know. I really do wonder about that one, only because it's completely natural. If you were to replace big pharma with weed, I think it would be a win for all.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that probably it's a great first step, but you should definitely try
I'm not
to
just,
fix it and
Right.
not be, all right, weed is my fix.
I guess my point is in the alcohol and drugs chapter, I would have led with Big Pharma.
There you go.
He left it out. It's not in here.
It's probably a good point.
So that's pretty much it. He starts wrapping up the chapter at that point and just really reinforcing that drugs and alcohol affect your metabolism and your mitochondria. And I guess this includes even, he says, caffeine, supplements.
Tobacco, yep.
Right. So, and at the very end, if you're having trouble, stopping any of this on your own, get professional help. Right. Kind of like what you'd expect. So,
Next chapter.
what is next? That's, yeah.
And it's physical activity, and I won't get into it because I it's after my own heart, obviously, but I think we're going to have some really interesting points to add to this one.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
So we'll see you next time, folks.
Heather, 11:48. There you go.
Huh? What?
Well,
we've been getting in trouble for going too long. So questions, comments, concerns, hit us at snackcast@yes.fit.
stay moving.
See ya.